All right, welcome in everybody. We have a super special episode, not only of Mo Sports Network, but we are collaborating here with the one, the only Sean Bernard and Pick Swap Media. Sean, what's happening, baby? How we feeling? We have a huge game tonight, and I'm stoked to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we're a little bit of everywhere tonight over on the Fox Sports The Gambler Twitter, streaming around a couple different YouTube spots over on Pick Swap Media as well. But I am excited to speak about this game. That this is this Sixers game the most that I've gotten up for in a while. That I am excited for this one. Forget the Pistons games, the Bulls games, all these things. This is going to be a real deal clash. So I'm excited to get into it with you and break it all down. And appreciate you for linking up and making this all happen for sure.
Absolutely. And want to give a quick shout out to our guy, Nick, for, plugging us up and linking me and Sean together. Super excited to give you guys this content. And funny enough, like you said, this is going to be kind of the big battle, right? Forget about the teams like the Pistons, forget about the Bulls, all these, bottom feeders. We have the New York Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers, two teams with big aspirations going into this year's playoffs. And I'm very excited because this is kind of a prove-it game, right? This is kind of a prove-it game for my Knicks in a sense where OG Anunoby is kind of here for the New York Knicks playing against a contender. It's, it's time to show up and really play some ball. And Double R, what's happening, baby? See, that's my Sixers fan. I was telling Sean before the episode about my Sixers fan friends. And oh geez, Kyle, listen, we don't got to fade the picks. We're taking, I got a lock today. Julius Randle is over 40.5 on the points, rebounds, and assists. That's my lock for today. Sean, I'm not sure if you got any Sixers bets you want to talk about, but feel free to let them fly.
Yeah, absolutely. I am the Sixers and NBA insider over at Fox Sports The Gambler, so quite familiar with breaking all that down as well. And my number one bet from the Sixers side of things, it should be the Joel Embiid points, over 34.5, because, Matt, there is not a Knicks player that can guard that man, nor is there across most of the NBA. And I see quite the vision where he gets Isaiah Hartenstein in foul trouble pretty early in this one, and it's smooth sailing from there. This is the Joel Embiid that we know and love. Probably one of the most artful foul drawers in the league, even though he gets critiqued for it. But I think he passes that 35 points pretty easily tonight.
I can't even say I disagree because the dominant performances that he's put on, against good centers throughout this season. Now, if the Knicks did have Mitchell Robinson in this game, I would be feeling a little bit more confident. That's a defensive anchor, and he has been reliable for us going against. Now, I'm not saying stopping, but at least helping to contain some of the, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, the superstar centers of the league. So Larry's saying Joel 40 plus tonight is easy. I think I hate to say it, but if Hartenstein does get in trouble early with his fouls, that is definitely something you could look for. I mean, coming off of a dominant performance, it's almost like expected for a role player like Hartenstein to kind of fall back and fade away because he's not known for 20 rebounds and 5 blocks. That's kind of an anomaly game. Against a guy like Joel Embiid, I can't say I'm too confident in our big man game tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about the same Joel Embiid that averaged 40.2 points per game throughout the month of December. One of the most historic stretches of basketball that we're seeing. This truly is an all-time great in the prime of his career, and everyone should be appreciating that. That as much as I want to pound the table, talk about the disrespect, I still feel it. I still feel like Joel Embiid, there's too many people pushing back. And every single night you watch that man play basketball, and he's the best player on the floor by a significant margin, even with the Jalen Brunsons, the OG Anunoby, the Julius Randle, the players that the Knicks do have. It's not close. That Joel Embiid is head and shoulders above everyone on this floor and really pretty much everyone in the league right now. This is a special stretch of basketball that I'm watching, and I can't believe, after his MVP season, to see him improve in every single statistical category with points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, while playing fewer minutes per game. It's really absurd, the things that he's doing right now. What are you feeling kind of watching Embiid from afar a little bit?
Well, to begin the season, I came in with the speculations, and truthfully, for the first 15 games, he was shooting a lot of free throws, and everyone instantly ran to, that narrative, glowed about the big fella. I mean, it's hard not to, though, right? Like you're
Absolutely.
saying, he's putting up phenomenal numbers, historic numbers, things that we haven't seen. I mean, for him, to be out here putting up, I mean, I don't know if you saw the tweet. Somebody said, "Oh, tonight I'm fading Joel Embiid, taking his points under," and
Yeah, Alex
instantly
Caruso, I'll put
everybody,
his name on it.
oh, you'll stamp the name. Yeah, everybody came and they laughed at him, and reasonably so, because the guy came out and then gave you 50 points. I mean, he's just an anomaly at the center position. To see him kind of run the point forward from a center spot is just incredible. And I know Tyrese Maxey's gotten a lot of credit for being the guard, the facilitator of the group, but the offense is zero without that big man down low. Being able to, expand the floor all the way to the 3-point line is something that, a lot of teams don't have the value of. And he's there, obviously, on the defensive end of things, too. So it's tough. He's going to be a menace tonight. And there really isn't anybody, like you're saying, on the Knicks that's there to just stop him. There's not a big enough body on the roster right now. They thought Mitchell Robinson was going to be, that guy throughout the season. He falls to an injury. This is the second time in 3 years that he's had a season-ending injury. Now you have Isaiah Hartenstein. You brought back old Taj Gibson. Man, what can we do to stop Joel Embiid tonight from your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a clean answer for it. That I truly feel this is one of the most elite scorers of all time. As I mentioned, he's going to go down as an all-time great, and he's in the prime of his career. That the biggest thing about Joel Embiid is we've seen all the Hakeem Olajuwon comps, things like that. To me, he's Kevin Durant plus. That he's the Kevin Durant style of scorer. That just mid-range is straight up automatic for him. And the way that he can just shoot over anyone is pretty absurd. And pair that with the fact that every once in a while, you still see him go bang in the post and do his thing, and still being 7'2", 275 pounds, the massive human being that he is. There's just no stopping that. And the best part about his game, where his most significant leap this year has been, is with his playmaking. That 6.2 assists per game, a big notch. That's 2 more assists than his previous career high of 4.2. And he's now at the point where he can't just be doubled and it's a turnover, or that's the best way to stop him. That he's now picking apart double teams in a way that he can't. And I think Nick Nurse deserves a ton of credit for all that coming together, because while Joel has never been a particularly gifted playmaker, and that's definitely been a weakness in his game throughout, I think there were just struggles to make passes in the past. And when you look at the Doc Rivers system of Joel Embiid at the elbow and then just floor spaces around him, there's not really passes for him to make now. When you watch the Sixers offense this year with the off-ball movement, with the cutting, the down screens, Kelly Oubre cutting off guys, there's passes for and there's passes for Embiid to make in a way that there just weren't. So I think he's capitalizing on that. I do give Nick Nurse a ton of credit for it, and it's really just made Joel Embiid more dangerous on the court.
Yeah, and I can't lie, the addition of Nick Nurse moved the needle for me a lot, because Doc Rivers, I said it, Double R, he's a loyal follower of us in most sports, and he knows how down we were on Doc Rivers. And we said if the Sixers ever want to get over that hump, you got to, the ultimate Knicks hater. Come on, cut me a little slack. I think we're at least covering a spread tonight, all right? I think we're at least covering a spread. Nick Nurse was a great addition, especially on the defensive side of things. And being that he's been able to unlock that, a part of Embiid's game that we thought was already kind of maxed out in terms of his potential, it's incredible. This is the best 76ers coach since Larry Brown. Yeah, totally. It's hard to argue at this point.
Yeah. And I know we've talked a lot about the Sixers off the bat here. I do want to swing things over from a comment from Larry here. Got to talk about the Maxey OG matchup, because they're going to make OG shadow Maxey. For starters, I just want to talk about how you feel about that OG Anunoby trade. Obviously, kind of the first blockbuster or significant deal that has moved the meter across the NBA. We're approaching the real trade season now, so this was a little bit early to the punch, I would say. But what were your feelings on the OG trade, and how do you feel this changed things from the Knicks' perspective?
Well, at first, I was definitely in somewhat of an emotional state, being that I had such a Emmanuel Quickley fandom going on. Like, it's hard not to like a guy like that. He's a fan favorite. He's almost the Tyrese Maxey, of New York, being 2 Kentucky guys, similar play style at the guard spot. So I had that very, I love the guy. But, and this is where things have changed. OG Anunoby adds a value to this Knicks starting lineup, and it takes them to that kind of upper step, right? And that's not saying that they're out here competing for an NBA Finals, but it puts them at a different spot than a lot of these mid-tier teams in the Eastern Conference. And I think his defensive prowess, the fact that you have a guy like him able to go and guard the other team's best player, that's a very valuable asset. We saw the other night the way he was able to clog the lane and even just disturb, the offense of the other team with things that don't show up on the stat sheet. And that's something that RJ Barrett was kind of unable to do. They looked at him his first few years as that type of guy. And then unfortunately, he's fallen off. Quite truthfully, he had a migraine issue in the beginning of the season, and we never saw that same brand of basketball from him. So that was really concerning. And it kind of looked like the Knicks just got tired of it. They got tired of hoping that he would bounce back, and they went out and they made a move. Unfortunately, it came at the expense of Emmanuel Quickly also having to be combined in that deal. But I think the price was about right. I'm not upset at getting rid of the Pistons pick as much as everybody else was kind of making it out to be. And if anything, this proves to me that the Knicks have a plan and they're executing upon it. And this might be kind of crazy to say. I feel like some people might understand what I mean by this. The signing of Dante DiVincenzo and then going out and acquiring OG Anunoby are two similar moves in my mind. Does that make sense in a way? Do you get like how it's the blueprint is almost there for me? They want talented, defensive-minded guys that have skills instead of just pure bucket getters. And that's kind of what we're shifting out of. And we're going into this, we want to be able to stop the other team. That's a Tom Thibodeau style team. And then we have Jalen Brunson, we have Julius Randle. We just got to get a couple more scorers on this offense. And I think the Knicks really got something cooking.
Yeah, I to be honest, I like the trade far more from the Knicks' perspective than what seemed to be the first reaction. And the way that I phrased it and the way that I keep looking at it is the Knicks are building this infrastructure for a star to come in. That we know this has kind of been the story in New York, that they're waiting for that big signing or that next big trade chip or free agent to come and take over the Big Apple. But to me, it becomes much more appealing when you start making these moves. Like OG Anunoby is a very good player, but you're never going to convince yourself that that's the best player on a championship team. I kind of feel the same way about Jalen Brunson, even though I think he's a tier above OG as far as his talent. I'm a huge Brunson guy, but they're both guys that I do believe play winning basketball. That you pair that with a guy like a Donovan Mitchell to throw out there, and all of a sudden you're cooking out it could happen. And all of a sudden you're cooking up like a true contender. So I like it from the Knicks perspective of building up these surrounding talents. And I'm also not an RJ Barrett guy whatsoever. I think he's kind of agree with you that he hit a wall. To me, he's closer to, I think OG Anunoby is what you guys wanted RJ Barrett to become, and he just wasn't doing that. Who knows, maybe getting back in Toronto, getting back in Canada in his home country changes thing. I am an Emmanuel Quickly guy and love him quite a bit, but I don't think it was a major deal to give up on him based on Jalen Brunson being in front of him, that his ceiling with the Knicks was far more capped than it will be with the Raptors. And it's very clear that Toronto was committed to getting a young player of his style or of his, I guess, talent level to build off. And that's what got the deal done. So without sacrificing a ton of draft capital, I was pretty impressed with this from the Knicks perspective. I am curious to see what that OG contract looks like at the end of the year. And I think that was what held back a lot of teams from going for it. But if he plays and earns it, this could be a long-term wing in the future and could be one that is a guy that moves the meter in the long run.
And you know what, Sean, on top of the fact that he's going to have to earn that contract and really prove himself, you look at who his agent is, the son of Knicks president Leon Rose. I mean, come on, I'm not one to make any assumptions here, but there's got to be, maybe a little talk over family dinner on Sunday. Hey, you want to, maybe convince OG to take a little salary cut? I don't know. Some incentives, so somebody zells somebody a few dollars. I'm not sure what's happening here, but I do know that, the Leon Rose has a plan. And like I said, I mentioned his name, but I really am looking over at the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker, because if they underwhelm come playoff time and they are letting the fans down once again, I don't necessarily know if he's going to be the first piece to go of that puzzle, but I do have a feeling that they're going to be kind of looking to restart. And who can you maximize, the value of in that group? That's Devin Booker. Do they believe in Kevin Durant leading their team? I'm not sure, but Devin Booker, a former CAA client of Leon Rose, signed his first contract at the same dinner table, with Leon. So I think there's some ties there. And I think this Leon Rose and Rich Paul stuff, them making amends, is only going to help, the New York Knicks and the free agent market as we advance. Now, Sean, I want to ask you, because we get a lot of it in our Facebook group with all the Most Sports supporters. This isn't the same old Knicks, right? They love to bring that brand of, it's the Knicks. They, the Knicks are going to nick. We saw Gilbert Arenas go ahead and throw a decade of, Knicks failures under the Leon Rose regime. Is it right to still have this, kind of name tag under us?
So I'll start with I can totally relate from the same old Sixers comments because there's plenty of those around here as well. But to
Mm.
speak on the Knicks, I agree. I do think they're different. I think Jalen Brunson changed the entire identity of that organization. That Brunson is a guy that is a riser in big moments. He's a winner in the way that he plays. And while there's limitations on what he can do, as far as that he is limited of size and there's certain matchups that he can't necessarily capitalize on, but he's still a guy that just gets to his spot so effectively. He's able to make others better, elevate others' game, and I think that has been infectious, this organization. Jalen Brunson pretty much single-handedly has changed things. Now, I still think there's steps. I'll start with saying I think Julius Randle is at the front and center for a guy that I'm not a believer in, and I think that the Knicks' overall ceiling will raise when they eventually move on from him and find a replacement that is a better fit for this team, or a guy that I think translates to winning more. But I do think that this Knicks team is the most impressed with any that I've seen in recent years, and Brunson is definitely the driving force for why of that.
Well, the Julius Randle thing, I've been on the trade Randle train before. I've fallen off, and then I've gotten back on, and I've fallen off again. And I've gotten back, this happens all the time, especially in New York sports. But one thing that I really just can't get past, it's very, very hard to replicate the production of 25, 10, and 5 from that power forward position. There are only so many guys that are making all NBA teams. Now, I'm not sitting here the biggest Randle fan. Obviously, I've gone to Knicks playoff games where he's flopped for us in the playoffs. I've sat in, the 200 section with a nice Julius Randle parlay in, maybe some 25 plus points, 10 plus rebounds, something of the sorts, and he's completely let me down. But it's very hard to move on from him right now while upgrading at that same time. Now, a name that gets thrown in a lot is Zion Williamson, in a potential deal that Double R just mentioned. I don't want to throw Brunson in there. That we can't. Brunson's untouchable, and I think to every New York executive he's untouchable. But I don't know if Zion makes the Knicks better. I don't know if he elevates them beyond what Julius Randle is doing, because what's Randle best with? Floor spacers. You're bringing in a guy like Zion who doesn't. I don't know, man. Do you see an angle where the Knicks can move on from Julius Randle while also upgrading right now? I just don't see it.
I see. I do. I think like Randall's a bit of a guy, and I don't mean to necessarily. I'm to compare him to Tobias Harris on the Sixers. That Tobias for years now, and Randall's a better player than Tobias Harris. Absolutely, I'm not arguing that. But my point in this being that Tobias just quietly gets his stats, and it's like you don't feel him there. That you don't feel his presence throughout the length of the game, and all of a sudden you check the box score and he's got 20 points, 10 rebounds. Randall's more impactful from that standpoint, that you do feel him more over the course of the game. But my biggest critique of him is that, like, when it's not going his way, the game's over for Randle and for the team. That you see that. And that to me is like such loser energy. And don't get me wrong, I've even seen that in Joel Embiid before, that I've seen the bad moments for him where the moping gets up on him. But for Randle specifically, that's a big deal to me, that when things aren't going his way or the shots aren't falling, he's basically checked out. And that's very visible to everyone watching the game. And there's a lot of games where I think he fills up the stat sheet in a way that doesn't equate to actually impacting the game in a similar way that I see from Tobias. So I think, like, if you find a guy, and obviously you have to find a replacement, but you're then just giving more leash for guys like OG to have more shots, like Brunson to do more things, and obviously whoever that replacement is. So I don't think it would be as notable of a loss as I guess like just the numbers would indicate.
That's definitely fair. And I understand where you're coming from with his headspace, because that's been my biggest critique, is that when the going's good, Julius Randle is your favorite guy on the team usually.
Right.
But when adversity strikes, he's getting frustrated, he's flailing his arms, he's getting technical fouls. Now, I do have to say, that was last season's big issue. I have not seen that yet. And that could be because he's now at nearly 20 games with 20 plus points scored. And, he's had the ball rolling his way, after that first week and a half, I think it was, of the regular season. Everything's been going well for Julius Randle. I need to see some adversity and how he bounces back from that. And if he can kind of grow, from that, I hate to say it, I'm back believing, because, one thing that I really do admire about Julius Randle's game in the past 3 years is how he's been able to grow under Tom Thibodeau, despite being in the trade machine every single day from Knicks fans, despite constantly people arguing about whether his head's in it, whether he's, a foot out the door. He's expanded his game. The first year we saw him, he was shooting mid-range jumpers. He not mastered, but he improved his mid-range game plentifully. The second year, when the Knicks make the playoffs in 2021, what is it? Oh, Julius Randle shooting 41% from 3. Last season, it took him a little bit to try and figure out the offense with Jalen Brunson, but all of a sudden now, he's trying to facilitate a little more. This year, he comes out and he's been able to do all of that at the 3 different levels while still getting his bully ball game off. You're 6'8", 260 pounds. You should be able to take the ball to the hole and drive to the rack. That's, what you're best at. He's playing to his strengths, and I think that's also why the ball has been rolling in his favor tonight.
Yeah, I think that's
sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and really throughout the length of his career, that I think about the version of Julius Randle that I remember back from the Kentucky days, and he was pretty much essentially a post-up scorer. That's the style of basketball he plays. And then you watch him, he's so much more of a shot creator than I ever thought would be capable in his game, that the way he is hitting some step backs, just shooting off the dribble, things like that. Like, I never envisioned his game reaching that point, and that is absolutely deserves credit for that, for putting the work in, for continuing to improve, and I do respect that. And I did want to bring up this point here from Larry. I love this comment. He said, I think the Knicks have been playing a waiting game for Cat, and I think they will pull it off. There has been a ton of Karl Anthony Towns buzz. How do you feel about that, and what do you think the chances of that actually are?
Well, I got to be honest. The Karl Anthony Towns thing is really interesting because obviously he's an incredible talent on the offensive side, but you look defensively, does he fit the mold of the Tom Thibodeau, situation, of the guys that he's been bringing in? I think Karl Anthony Towns is great, but after watching Julius Randle bully him the way he did last week, gave him 38 points, 16-something rebounds, I was just incredibly impressed with how Randle took that matchup almost personally. Like, he heard, the Karl Anthony Towns, he heard himself in the trade machine, going to Minnesota, and he stepped up. So it's really tough. I don't know what the package would consist of. I don't necessarily know if I'd be able to. I'm hearing rumbles that they don't want to give up Mitchell Robinson because they wanted to kind of replicate what they did in Minnesota with Towns if they were to acquire him. But then again, where's Julius Randle going in that situation? So it's really tough. Do you get better with Karl Anthony Towns replacing Julius Randle on this Knicks team? Do you think?
I do. I personally do that. I've said my piece on Randle a little bit, just kind of the vibes that I get from him and the way that I watch the game. I'm not a huge Cat guy either. That I think that he's had his fair share of battles with Joel and things like that. But I think this is a great comment by Raheem that Cat would create spacing for the Knicks, which would make the lane open for Brunson OG. I absolutely agree with that. That the Cat is not just like
he cut out.
You all good?
I think we're good. Okay. I wasn't sure. I was losing you for a sec. But yeah, I can't argue that, right? Being that Randle is such a high usage type of guy. Right. It's just like I said, it's very hard to replicate 25, 10, and 5. If there was a guy out there that could probably do it, I mean, Karl Anthony Towns is definitely one of those players. I don't know if the Knicks go around making that move just to make a move. I don't think Leon wants to make a move just to make a move. I think he really wants to be precise. And the OG Anunoby trade kind of told me that, because apparently they had been fielding offers for Emmanuel Quickley since the middle of last season and finally just decided to do it. So I don't know. I do want to ask you your thoughts. The Knicks are in rumors and in some talks about Malcolm Brogdon. How do you feel his style of play would impact the starting lineup?
I mean, I think it's a little repetitive next to Brunson. That I think a lot of the things that I like about both their games are somewhat similar. Brunson's obviously the better player and the guy that, all trust should be in within this locker room. So I don't love it from the Knicks perspective. I do think Brogdon is definitely traded, and I think that he will help a contender this playoff stretch. But I don't think the Knicks are the home for him. That I think that they have needs that are more specific, and like Brogdon is not much of a shot creator, not a guy that's going to create his own offense. And to me, I think that's probably the void that I think the Knicks should look to attack. You can make the argument about getting a big man and upgrading due to the Mitchell Robinson injury. That I would also consider a bigger need than going after Brogdon. So while I like his game and do think he will ultimately help a contender this year, I don't think the Knicks are the spot where he belongs.
I was looking more so at Miami for him. I don't know if that maybe just fits. The Eric Spoelstra kind of system over there gives me the Malcolm Brogdon type of vibe. I feel like that would be a little bit better fit. And they're also kind of desperate to make a move of that sort. So I think that's probably his more likely destination. I did see the other team that was interested was a playoff contender in the East. So could be the Miami Heat. But let's trace back a little bit to tonight's matchup. What is your, aside from Joel Embiid, take Embiid out because obviously, like you said, above and beyond, he's the best player on the floor tonight. What is your matchup to watch? Is it OG and Tyrese? Is it, maybe Tobias and Julius? Talk to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump right on Larry's comment here and as well that he said the wild card tonight is Kelly. So Kelly Oubre Jr., depending on how he plays tonight, will impact this game. I totally agree with that. With no DeAnthony Melton, that Kelly Oubre will be elevated into the starting lineup once again. And now this is our second game. We get a look at kind of this jumbo starting lineup that the Sixers are rolling out with Tyrese Maxey and then Nico Batum, Tobias Harris, Kelly Oubre, and Joel Embiid. That is a lot of size to roll out on the court. We've only seen it for one game, and they absolutely demolished the Bulls in that matchup. Going to be a little bit of a harder challenge here with the Knicks tonight, so I'm excited to see how that looks exactly. And Nico Batum, by the way, I don't want to go remiss without mentioning how great he has been on this team. The entry passes to Joel, the quick release threes, just the pace it, the way he makes decisions has been incredibly impressive to me. So got to give him his flowers. But yeah, I think the X factor to me is Kelly Oubre Jr. He's been awesome his entire tenure here so far. It's been so much more of a positive influence as far as buying in on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's the best cutter off ball that we've had around Joel, and you'll see him create shots for himself without needing the ball in his hands, which is such a huge skill for a guy alongside Embiid, who's obviously so ball dominant and needs to control things for so long. So for me, I would say Kelly Oubre is probably my X factor for tonight's game.
On the Sixers side of things, now X factor, if the Knicks want to win this game, who do you think?
I guess I'd probably say OG, to be honest. That my biggest concern with this Sixers team is still guarding the perimeter. That in all the conversations for trade talks, I don't feel great about the options of Tobias Harris, Nico Batum, or even like a Robert Covington off the bench to be like a primary wing defender. If OG Anunoby truly is the guy that he believes he is, as far as a two-way wing, one of the best in the NBA, a guy that's deserving near max money, tonight's the type of night where you prove that. I think that he should be able to beat, I would assume Tobias Harris is likely his matchup. Potential that Kelly Oubre takes him, who's been very good defensively as well. But I think the X factor from the Knicks perspective, it's about OG proving why that they just invested so much to go get him and that he is that caliber of talent.
Yeah, I can't deny the OG kind of love over on this side. I really do think that watching him do the intangible things for my team is really what kind of has made him a fan favorite in his just week, being with the team. Obviously, he had some shoes to fill with Emmanuel Quickley being the former fan favorite, but you really can't complain when you look at the things that he brings to your team. As far as the offense goes, we had a feeling that it would take him a little bit to get, his feet wet over here. I think his offensive game will be a big factor, but I also think Dante DiVincenzo, he's been shooting 44% from deep this season, and the guy's been lights out. I got some flack for calling him lights out the other day, but the guy's been electric. I mean, you see him over there with the Nova guys, and if he's able to continue the pace and space that he's been able to provide, I think it's going to be really valuable, because the Knicks, the one thing that they've been doing a lot differently from, the former Knicks teams and even the 2021 Knicks that were successful in the playoffs in that first round, or even saw the playoffs losing to the Hawks, was that they were able to go out and run and gun with the best of them now. They're able to go, and they have the young guys, they have the energy. Not only that, but you're not sitting here fumbling the ball on a fast break. I mean, I'm sure you remember the Reggie Bullock incident when he had the 2-on-1 and he travels and then tries to flip the ball up. No, now we have guys that have played together for a long time, stemming back to the no days. There's a lot of chemistry with this Knicks roster, and I think DiVincenzo's my key for tonight. And yeah, I mean was the one to say that I was going a little overboard with the DiVincenzo lights out. But listen, man, he put up 27 points the other night. He shot, I think it was 7 of 9 from 3. You can't hate on the guy's game. He's a great role player. You know what you're going to get from him night in and night out, and I think he's going to be a big key for the Knicks tonight to win this game if they want to.
Yeah, I like that shout. And another Villanova guy that we have not mentioned enough, I feel, is Josh Hart. That Josh Hart, to me, that's a guy that when you're building those same game parlays, take a look at his rebounds, because the Sixers have been known to give up rebounds, and Josh Hart is among the best guard rebounders I've ever seen. And the thing that stands out the most about his game is it's always those back-breaking offensive rebounds that he pulls down. It's the ones in the crucial possession of the game where he just comes in and gets one. That, to me, is the type of thing that absolutely swings the momentum of a game. I love that about Josh Hart, always had throughout his career, and something that I have a fear of going down tonight for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like Josh Hart. You could see it now. There's a rebound up in the air. Kelly Oubre's watching it fall. And then Josh Hart, he just comes in and grabs it. Like, he really does get those rebounds. And he said it himself, I believe, that break other teams. He's able to get in there. And yeah, I've never seen a guard kind of just get up and create the space. It's hard to explain, but when you watch Josh Hart rebound, it's kind of a work of art in terms of
Yeah.
basketball. They say basketball is poetry, and watching him just go up and grab a ball over guys that are way bigger than him, both height and weight wise, it's pretty impressive. And Double R says the Sixers give up too many offensive rebounds, and that's where Mitchell Robinson would have been a huge key tonight. He was leading the league. He was leading most teams in offensive rebounds. He had more than I think it was like 25 teams at one point in the first 3 weeks of the NBA season. So that really would have been a nice thing to have tonight. But obviously, we're just wishing flipping coins into a well here with Mitchell Robinson. Isaiah Hartenstein, we need you to come out and be the guy that we saw last game. Otherwise, it's going to get real scary real fast out here. So I think the Knicks matchups, we got to weather the storm in terms of Joel Embiid and just kind of pick at your guys' guard play as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think we're seeing first quarter Jericho Sims minutes is my prediction on how this one shakes out. But the full advice to Hartenstein should literally be to just keep your hands up and don't jump. Like that's what you have to tell him, because I'm telling you right now, I can script out the start of this game. Every single game that the Sixers run the same set where it's Nico Batum comes up to the top of the key, Joel Embiid getting deep post position. It's an entry pass to Joel, and it's either he draws a foul or it's a free 2 points. And the Sixers run it to start every single game, and it's very effective that either you get this opposing center with a foul in the first literal minute of a game, or it's free 2 points, and all of a sudden we're off to the races. So the way that he does do it, it is a skill. People can hate on it from the foul drawing perspective, but it's so tactical the way that he does it. It's very intentional, very clear why Joel does, and it obviously translates to both the Sixers and his own individual success.
So, Sean, am I hearing Joel Embiid first bucket tonight? Is that honestly, I don't hate that bet whatsoever. I think that's a great idea. Joel Embiid first bucket. You guys heard it here first. Shout out to the Sauce Network and Kyle. He was tapping in a little bit earlier. He said, if you're not betting the Knicks +6, then you don't know ball. Listen, that's going to be, alongside my Julius Randle pick. I really like the Knicks to at least cover the spread tonight. I think if they do lose, it's going to be a heartbreaker. I think that's the case. The brand of basketball that they've been playing, they really haven't been getting blown out, knock on wood. But I think Joel Embiid, it's just a matter of containing him as much as you possibly can. Now, containment might be 40 points in a loss. That I'd be, happy. He could get as much as he is looking for, as long as, we could escape with the W. And that also means that you're going to have to do a job of defending Tyrese Maxey. I want to hear your thoughts on him, because the guy that's been having a stellar season is getting overshadowed by a guy having an even better year. So your thoughts on Tyrese Maxey, and is he the true number 2 of this team, of this franchise going forward?
He is. He absolutely is. And I don't know what more he has to do for not everyone to buy into this. That for Maxey specifically, I'll start by saying, it's amazing how much he just continually blows past expectations for himself. Like every single year, he has grown in a way that I can't believe. Like we're talking about the same dude who the reason that he dropped in the draft is that people didn't believe in his shooting, that he was a 29% 3-point shooter in college. Fast forward to his second year in the NBA, and he's a top 5 shooter by 3-point percentage across the entire league. And then he, with a higher volume, matches that next season, gets an even better efficiency on higher volume, which is even more absurd. And the percentage has dipped a little bit this year, still shooting 38.8% from 3. So you're not going to hear any complaints from me as long as you're in those upper 30s here. And especially when he's getting up close to 10 threes a game, which is currently the case. I think 8.8 is what he's averaging.
10 threes a game is crazy volume. I think after James Harden left, he took a little bit of page out of James's book. I mean, whether it's the 3-point shooting ability, or you're seeing, I saw a clip from the other night of his handle and the way he kind of, I don't know if you saw it, that tween the leg, and then he goes off that right hand straight to the rack. I mean, that's a page straight out of the James Harden playbook, a little floater off the high glass. So Tyrese Maxey, like you said, he's been able to build every single year. And unfortunately, I said it before, he had a ton of similarities to Emmanuel Quickley, and I think Quickley could have gone along that same type of progression if the Knicks allowed him to. So I think that's why it hurt so much to let him go. And I'm kind of looking at Tyrese Maxey of damn, that could have been, a similar aspect for my team. So I think Maxey's incredible, and I think he deserves to be an all-star this year. Is he currently in the list there? Because I know we have Brunson, but Julius Randle isn't. The list is kind of a little bit wacky so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Maxey currently 5th in voting for guards in the East, so we'll see what things ultimately shake out. I agree. I think he absolutely deserves to be. And to speak real quick on what I think he means to the Sixers offense is when you look at last year's version, the 2-man of James Harden and Joel Embiid, incredibly effective, but it was also so predictable that you knew what was going to happen. It was the two-man pick and roll. It was either James
Always.
Harden getting a switch and having this step back three, or it was James Harden with the pocket pass to Joel, and he's either attacking the basket or shooting the mid-range. With Maxey, there's like this refreshing randomness to things of him doing all these different things, running all about the court. The pace that he plays with is absolutely absurd. And sometimes his finishes while going 100 miles per hour are absolutely crazy to me. Like his ability to just softly lay it off the glass. I've said this before and fully stand by it. Kyrie Irving is the only player across the entire NBA that I think has a better finishing package than Tyrese Maxey. That every night he pulls out something crazy. Yeah, I am fully in on him as a 3-level scorer. And who is that you said there?
Oh, I said, no, his touch around the rim is just incredible. Like you said, he's able to go 100 miles an hour and the ball just still falls off the tip of his fingers. I mean, it's crazy. You know, guys like that, he's fast, and it's almost like James Harden of his early days. You know what I mean? When he first got to Houston, he had the rejuvenated legs. He was fresh, and he had that burst in him. Once he got to Philadelphia, I don't think that was there anymore. You know, even when he was in with the Brooklyn Nets, like he didn't seem to have that same type of spark going on. But now it seems like Tyrese Maxey is rejuvenating, this lineup, and he's bringing kind of like you said, a new dynamic, a new life to what the Sixers have going on. And is he going to be the number 2 piece? What up, Mike? How we doing, baby? Is he going to be the number 2 piece if the Sixers want to win a championship? Do you believe?
I think so. And part of you touched on the Suns with Devin Booker and it falling apart. Part of the thing, I guess, the era of basketball we're in is I think these super teams are dead now. That I think that the model of winning in today's NBA is similar to what the Nuggets did last year. That you get your star, which in the Nuggets is Nikola Jokic, with the Sixers is Joel Embiid. Then you get a complementary secondary star, which I think is Tyrese Maxey, clearly Jamal Murray with the Nuggets. And then you surround them with the right pieces to bring out the most of them. I think Maxey, there's way more options with what he can do. He's the real deal as a shooter. His playmaking has taken a leap, which I think a lot of people doubted coming into this year. And both Embiid and Maxey in the top 20 in the league in assists, which is pretty crazy based on what their standards were coming into the year. So I do think Maxey's that guy. I think that the rest of this roster, they're still probably one move away from being that true championship tier caliber team. But I'm pretty optimistic that Maxey's the real deal and believe that he's only getting better from here.
That was going to be my next question as well, because OG Anunoby was a name that was on your guys' radar as well. Who do you guys go after to really put you over this next step and see if the city of Philadelphia can get an NBA Finals appearance?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question, and I'll be up front and say that OG was probably the top name on my list as far as preference. He is like the perfect archetype of 3-and-D wing for today's NBA, which is why he's such a popular name. As far as who they actually will target from here, the pipe dream would be Lauri Markkanen if that ever becomes available. That I would absolutely love that as a complementary piece to Joel, a guy that can play the 5 when he's not on the floor and be a floor spacer when he is. There's been a lot of DeJounte Murray buzz, which I'm not quite a DeJounte guy. I don't think he's a winning player. There's a lot that he's a more theoretical player than I think in actuality, that I just don't get the feeling. Yeah, I don't get it. So I'm hoping it's not that. I do get the argument of the Sixers needing a secondary ball handler. Also some Pascal Siakam buzz. I think the unfortunate reality is the Sixers are much quieter at the deadline than most hope. I think they probably scrape up one of the Bogdanoviches or something of that sort, that caliber of player, and they wait till the offseason to make a big swing.
Wow, Murray is my guy. Get him and we go to the finals this year. Is Murray going to be on the I don't think Murray is a guy that's going to be on the move like that. Listen, high hopes right there. I would hope for you. If Jamal Murray is on the move, you best believe there's going to be a lot of callers, especially with his playoff performance. As a guy that can heat up that way, I mean, that's a dream. Now, you mentioned Pascal Siakam. It almost seems like wishing for Pascal Siakam is wishing that Tobias Harris would just be good. Is that almost like it's a very similar style of play, and it's maybe a little less of space that Tobias could potentially bring, but hasn't brung. It's like Tobias Harris. The idea of him was supposed to be fantastic in Philly, and then he came here and he had a good couple seasons, but as of late, it's just looking like a shell of what he once was. So I think Pascal could be a good potential move if the Raptors are looking to sell at the deadline. I don't hate that by any means. Lauri Markkanen, a great name to get thrown in there, but that Danny Ainge asking price, right? That Danny Ainge, he always wants the King's ransom every single time for one of his big guys. So I don't know about that. And I love your take on DeJounte Murray. I am not a DeJounte Murray believer. I'm not a DeJounte Murray fan. I think he is empty statistics. And
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say something a little bit crazy here. I think him and Tyrese Halliburton are two in the same. I don't think that Tyrese Halliburton,
Not a
has
Halliburton
been.
guy.
I'm not a Halliburton guy. I think Halliburton has been assist hunting this season, and that's what's really been kind of setting him over the edge. I think he's been able to space the floor great with his passing ability and facilitation. He is a good passer, but I think he is benefiting from his assist hunting. I think he's trying to get these stats, and I think they're just very similar guys in a sense that sure, they could fill a stat sheet, but I don't think they can bring winning basketball to that city, especially when you look at the defense. These are two guys that get highly touted on social media for some reason as guys that are bringing defensive prowess to your team. And Matt Zerbiak, wow, not throwing me in with Wally. No, these are guys that were supposed to be defensive anchors when they were dealt, right? When he went from the Kings to the Pacers, he was a defensive, menace. When DeJounte went from the Spurs to the Hawks, he was very good defensively. His length, both of them, the length, their closeout ability. The tape is not showing me that. And the Pacers defensive rating is showing me that. And the Hawks defensive rating is showing me that as well, that these guys, when they are out there on the floor, the defense is lackluster and the passing game is, through the roof. Great for their assist statistics, but not good when you're trying to win basketball games. Now, that's my hot take, and I've been waiting for a little bit to get that off just because Halliburton is just everywhere these days, everywhere. And it irks me because I truly do believe that he's a dweeb.
Wow. Well, he's everywhere because he should be. Because you're not going to catch me throwing DeJounte Murray and Tyrese Halliburton in the same sentence for that one. A couple things I want to hit on from that here. For starters, Halliburton is not a good defender. I'm with you there. He's a poor defender for sure, but some of it is inflated due to the way the Pacers play. That there's not truly a good defender really on that entire roster. No. Yeah.
Another guy like that, Miles Turner, touted as a guy that's supposed to be a defense anchor, and then he's just a barn door. Keep going.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. You're good, and that's fair. I do think Halliburton's the real deal. This is a 40% three-point shooter on high volume. He's the engine of that entire Pacers system. And by the way, I'm a little bit of a believer in this Pacers team. That not that I think they're contenders or anything, but I think they're the type.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think they're probably a playoff team though. Like see them finishing in that 6 seed range this year. That's probably where I would pin them at. And Halliburton only getting better. That this is a guy that I believe in the shot. I believe in the creation, and I don't think it's any fluke the way that they are beating this Bucks team. That I think there truly is. He's starting to have that killer instinct that when he sees Damian Lillard guarding him, he's taking that 10 times out of 10. And to see kind of that step in his mentality, I do think is a big deal. I think the playmaking is real. I don't think it's assist hunting on his side of things. So I am a Halliburton guy, but I do understand the DeJounte Murray hate.
I'm reading this comment here from Prince. Assist hunting is wild. It's natural. I'll say pissed me off he wasn't aggressive during the in-season because I know he can turn it up aggressively at a switch. And yeah, I think that's really what it was. Now, obviously, his offensive game, he's a great scorer. And I just think the clip, I think it was, of him arguing with either Ben Mathurin or somebody on the squad, just basically saying, shoot the ball. I saw that a few weeks ago, and then I kept watching these Pacer games, and I'm watching the style of play. And listen, I don't hate him as a person. I want to root for the guy. His story's been great, but I just can't. His style of play, I just can't get behind. I do think he is a great player, and I do think that the Pacers are actually a much better team than a lot of people anticipate. I think a team like Cleveland should be shaking in their boots. Yeah. If they have to face a team like the Pacers come playoff time. I just don't know, the ceiling of that squad. But, that's another discussion. The Indiana Pacers are a very odd team and where they could go next. Mainly, though, the main point here is that they're not better than any of these two teams above. So,
true. Quick hot take to interject here. If we do get a Pacers-Bucks series first round, I'm taking the Pacers in that series.
You're taking the pace.
I do think that there is something to that matchup. And from the Eastern Conference perspective, I'm very much hoping for that to be the case, because to knock the Bucks out in the first round in a potential matchup would be absurd and change things for sure. I mean, we saw it happen last year with the Heat and the Bucks, so you can't take it off the table. I am a little bit of an anti-Milwaukee guy, so I think we.
I was going to say this sounded a little well, what's the agenda here? Do you hate Milwaukee? Like, do you want them to blow it up? Is that what's next? Because do you think Milwaukee blowing it up makes an easier route for the Sixers? I mean, obviously, right?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it does. It's less about that. More, I just think they're kind of frauds, to be honest. I'm not a Giannis guy. I think Giannis is just kind of lame in the way that he goes about his business, the whole fighting for the ball, throwing ladders, just all that kind of stuff, and his personality I don't dig. And from a basketball perspective, I think he's way more limited than people realize. That I've gotten into the mud on some like Embiid versus Giannis debates, and to me, I really don't think it's that close. That I think Embiid is absolutely the better basketball player on both sides of the floor, and I think Embiid's game is going to age significantly better. That I think the second that Giannis loses a little bit about athleticism, he's pretty much like over as a player. Like that's what he does. He's bigger, stronger, faster than guys. When you take that away, like you think this guy's gonna be shooting mid-range jumpers over other guys? Like no chance. And then from when they make the Dame Lillard trade, obviously the expectations that come with it change their entire identity as a team. And defensively, they can't hang whatsoever. To see the massive just dip in really the Bucks' identity these past couple of years has been a hard-nosed defensive team that competes, and now they're a team that just has to outscore teams. And I don't see the way that translates to winning. I think Dame Lillard has lost a step, and I would even go to the point where I would rather Tyrese Maxey than Dame Lillard as my number 2 in a playoff run. So yeah, I'm just out on the Bucks as a whole.
I don't hate that take by any means. I think Damian Lillard is definitely super overrated. I was holding my breath, praying that the Knicks would not blow up the tank, for Damian Lillard, trading all these assets that we spent so long building. Luckily, Leon, and that kind of proved to me, again, that Damian Lillard didn't fit the mold. Because why? Because like you said, Tyrese Halliburton looked at him the other night and said, food. He looked at him and said, that is a 4-course meal. I'm going to blow by you every single possession just because I can. And that's just what his identity has always been. Like you said, a Damian Lillard team is always having to outscore you. And having a guy like that alongside Giannis, who is very, like you're saying, one-dimensional in terms of he brings athleticism, but he's not scoring from the outside. He's not giving you, different dynamics to his game. And I agree. That's why Joel Embiid is a better player than Giannis, because he's been improving every year in a different category of his game. Giannis has been the same guy every single year. You know what you're going to get from him. It's really it's the ultimate weather the storm of Giannis. And, you should be able to beat the rest of the guys because there's nobody else on that team. I mean, Drew Holiday was really, really a backbone of that Milwaukee team, and especially the defensive identity, because Giannis's rim protection is nothing without Drew Holiday stopping the opposing team's, number 1 guard.
And Brook Lopez, by the way, that a huge part of that team.
That big Brook.
Yeah, and on both sides of the floor, very huge to that team. But yeah, I'm not a Milwaukee guy. I frankly think I would put the Sixers ahead of them as far as my chances at a championship. I think they're right in that same tier, and that's changed throughout the season. That originally I had things looked at as the Bucks and the Celtics as the clear top 2 in the East. The Sixers kind of a tier below that. That is kind of blended in a way that I didn't fully expect to be the case. Some of that by the Sixers overplaying expectations, and some of that by the Bucks just not looking as good as I think me and a lot of people expected. So I think it's pretty even from that. And I do want to swing it to you. I'm curious, kind of your outlook on the Knicks and where they stack up in that category. So as things currently stand, the record for the Knicks, not quite where you guys want it to be, that they're sitting at 19-15 on the season in the A seed for the Eastern Conference. A lot of basketball left to play, but how high do you think they climb up in this Eastern Conference this year?
Well, truthfully, like you said, 19-15 isn't necessarily, you look at it, it's not glamorous, right? But then you look a little bit deeper. The Knicks have had one of the top 3 hardest schedules in the league. We also have played the most road games in the league. We've played the Bucks 4 times already. I mean, there's a lot of home games, a lot of home bottom feeder games coming up in this second half of the schedule for the Knicks. And I really think they're in a good position to make a run and have some win streaks in here. I think this is the time now where you need to capitalize on, like I said, the strength of your schedule. You really got a lot of the hard teams out of the way, and you had a successful record against teams above 500. So I can't be mad at that whatsoever, despite 19-15 not looking as glamorous as, we thought it could heading into, 2024. I can't hate where the Knicks are at. The total outlook, the aspirations that I'm looking at is the 4 seed. I think it's going to be a battle. And I think, like you're saying, I think it's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Celtics, a gray area really below that. And it's gotten a lot closer than it has been in recent years between the Sixers. And I think tonight is a big, big game in proving, are the Knicks and Sixers in that kind of gray area looking to not overleap the Bucks or Celtics, but get in that same type of conversation and really prove yourself as a powerhouse in the East, because I think it is Bucks, not no particular order, but Bucks, Sixers, Celtics, Knicks, and then a little bit of a gap in the East from anybody else that actually has an identity or path in what they're looking to aspire with their, their franchise.
So if we get a Knicks versus Miami Heat series, you're feeling great about that one?
Great. I don't know if I use the word great, but I'm feeling really good. And quite honestly, I was feeling really good last year as well, before the Miami Heat dark magic of Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent, shooting whatever they did. That was just, an anomaly. But sometimes it's gonna, don't sleep on the Heat. You never can. Right. And I said that after they spanked us twice, that, they're here to play ball. These guys are never, come playoff time, they're never here to just play around and skate through. The Miami Heat are always going to be hard-nosed, and it's going to be a battle. But I do feel confident, especially with the talent that the Knicks have acquired now. I feel really comfortable throwing OG Anunoby on a guy like Jimmy Butler. And last year, we were double teaming Jimmy Butler on the perimeter. Not quite sure why. He's not a perimeter threat, necessarily in that sense. This is a situation now where I feel like you could stick OG on him. You're not having Jimmy drive and kick it out to an open Caleb, an open Vincent, an open Max Strus, an open Kevin Love. I mean, these are guys that were just putting daggers in you last year. And I think now that you have more of a defensive prowess with OG and hopefully, a move at the deadline, I think the Knicks are ultimately going to be a good margin above teams like the Heat, above teams like the Cavs, above teams like the Nets, any of those other, second half, even the Pacers, second half of the East type of teams.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think I entered the season with the belief. I think I had the Knicks as the 4 seed. I'm pretty much, I'm for the most part, a little lower on the Heat than the consensus. But I've been very impressed with the way they played this year. Jaime Jaquez, the real deal, that I know that the Chet and Wemby stuff is totally taken away from the rookie shine, but Jaquez, I think, has very convincingly been the third best rookie this year, which is really impressive stuff, and a guy that just fits exactly what the Heat do. So I think I've bumped the Heat up to 4th in kind of my Eastern Conference power rankings. I do think I put the Knicks at 5, but I think the Knicks and Pacers race is pretty interesting and pretty close there. And the question that I got to swing to you, I mean, we already can know your feelings on Tyrese Halliburton here, but you're telling me completely seriously, if it's Jalen Brunson versus Tyrese Halliburton, you think it's Brunson pretty significantly?
In terms of like who's the better player overall, or who is like who I'm taking?
Who's the better player?
The thing is, I have to right now. I can't sit up here and say like, oh, Jalen Brunson head and shoulders above, but I'm going to say Jalen Brunson, and I'm going to say that last season's playoffs, seeing that he could give another opposing team 45 and 8 assists at any given moment on 50+% from deep. I mean, the proof is in the pudding right there that Jalen Brunson, when push comes to shove, he could perform in the playoffs. Now, if Tyrese Halliburton comes out and has a stellar postseason this year, I think there's definitely a conversation to be had. How can there not be? It would be ignorant to sit here and say, Jalen Brunson is still, incredible. But until proven otherwise, and the same goes for people that say Julius Randle can't perform in the playoffs, right? Who am I to sit here and say, oh, Randle's going to hoop this year come postseason? I have nothing to stand on with that. Right. Same thing for Tyrese Halliburton. He's been great so far in the regular season. Let's see how that translates when, real basketball time comes, because like everybody knows, the NBA playoffs are a totally different animal than the regular season. A lot of cruising going on right now. Not saying that the Knicks are cruising, not saying the Sixers are cruising, but a lot of guys are not playing with the same intensity that they do come playoff time. And so I'm really, really curious to see how Halliburton's game translates, come postseason.
Yeah, very fair. And to be honest, I think I still taken Brunson in the playoff setting as well. That I do think it's very close, and I think I probably would argue Halliburton, if we're talking long term, that Halliburton would be the guy. And I think from just an overall talent standpoint, I probably lean towards Halliburton. But there is something about Jalen Brunson that I absolutely love, and a guy that is a big game raiser. And honestly, what opened my eyes to how talented he truly is was even before the Knicks. When he went on that run with the Mavericks, winning those games without Luka and really stepping to center stage, and then being like the perfect partner to Luka, that really showed me some stuff. And I think the Mavericks made a huge mistake letting him go. And by the way, the contract that the Knicks handed out, for all the noise that caused at that time, talking about how overpaid he is, that has aged into one of the best value contracts across the entire
underpaid.
NBA.
Quite honestly, he's underpaid at this point.
He absolutely is for his production. So little hat tip to the whole front office of the Knicks for pulling that one off. And yeah, he is that dude. I am a big Jalen Brunson guy, so you won't catch me talking trash on that one.
I appreciate you giving the front office their flowers because they don't get many of them. They do
Yeah.
not. They never get many of them. But Richard Jefferson recently turned a corner, finally saying that the Knicks have something cooking. And I think tonight is really going to be a big test of see how much we really truly are cooking. Is this OG move as big as we kind of are thinking it potentially could be, or do we really have to go out and get one more piece? Not that I think we're, even if we win this game, we're competing, but how big of a piece, how far away are the New York Knicks? Tonight's going to tell us. And Sean, I want to keep chatting with you, but I think we're about 3 minutes from game time. You have any last licks that you want to get out here before we head out?
I guess we'll wrap it up with a little final predictions for this game before we get out of here. And I would be remiss. I do think this is a Sixers win tonight. I do feel strongly about that this has been a Sixers team that has stepped up to just about every challenge thus far, and I don't expect tonight to be different. If I want to lay out my entire predicted game script, I think the Sixers get up early. I think the first quarter that they have a pretty convincing start. I think the Knicks come back in this game, and it turns into a game, and the Sixers ultimately pull away late in the fourth quarter. So I like the Sixers. I like them to cover the -6, but I do think this is going to be a close game.
Okay, so you had me. I truly do. Entirely honest, I think the Sixers do win this game just because we don't have the center spot. That's really what makes or breaks this for me. I think it's going to be a very, very tough challenge to contain Joel Embiid enough for us to get a win here, especially being that our number two, guy is either Jericho Sims or Taj Gibson. That's just really, it ain't looking good because Precious Achua, he ain't doing much down there either. I could promise you, it ain't Precious with Precious. So I unfortunately do think that the Sixers will win this game, but I will say I think the Knicks cover the 6. I know it was 8.5 elsewhere, maybe earlier in the day. I think this is going to be, like I said, if the Knicks win this game, they're going to just scrape it out by the skin of their teeth. But if we lose, it's going to be in heartbreaking fashion. I think this is going to be a close one. I think we'll get a nice third quarter fake comeback from the Knicks. And then ultimately, fourth quarter Joel Embiid time, whether he's going to get to the line because we can't contain him or he's just going to go crazy because everybody has fouls. I think ultimately that's what's going to cost us. But hey, man, if the Knicks come out and win this game, all I'm saying is you will be hearing from me in the Mo Sports community and probably on Twitter. You guys will see me just ranting about how legitimate this team is if we come out and we beat the Sixers team with no, center depth whatsoever.
Yeah, all very fair, and I am excited to see it. I am more of a, I guess, positive Knicks outlook than I think a lot of people, and specifically Philly people for sure. But I do think that the Sixers are the better team. I do think they show that tonight. But this is a measuring stick matchup for both sides. That for the Sixers, it depends on how they stack up too. That this is a game that there will be notes made about how they play, how they match up, and how they look compared to a more competent team than a lot that they've played over this recent stretch. So this will be a telling game for both sides, I think, for sure.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of, like you said, measuring stick stuff. We're going to be coming out with a lot of film to watch because not often do you get fully healthy battles of teams like this. Two contending teams. The lineups are going to be going toe to toe. Obviously, like I said, no Mitchell Robinson, but we're not even looking at that anymore, being that it's season ending. This is going to be likely, a majority of your team, a piece here or there heading into the playoffs. How do you stack up against another top dog in the East? And it's time to prove it. This is where if you're a team that like the Knicks, you got to step up and, fight with the big dogs. The Sixers have been atop the East for 5-6 years now. It's time to prove that you could be in that upper echelon and hey, let's come out and have a game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've done our best breaking it down from every angle, talking about everything here. So now it's up to these two teams to check rock and see what we got for a game here. So appreciate everybody that's hop in. I know we got Double R here saying he broke his pregame routine. So appreciate
that's
you.
Real Double R. Prince, thank you very much. Thank you. Double R, thanks for breaking the routine. How much do I miss quickly? Just to top off, I miss him, but listen, man, if it gets us closer to this NBA, finals that we're looking for, then I can't be too mad. Mike, appreciate the love. Sean, again, thank you for having me on, doing this little collab. Shout out to our guy, Nick, one of my students over at CSB, for making this happen. Families of Sean, crazy small world. You know,
Yeah.
I knew Mike, you knew Mike. It's crazy how this stuff works. So appreciate everybody for coming out and supporting from both communities. We're going to definitely be doing some more coverage coming up in the future. Sean, again, thank you for having me on. And I'm sorry, but let's go Knicks, baby. Let's go Knicks.
I'm with you. I was with you till the end, but yeah, appreciate everyone for tuning in, and absolutely some more stuff on the way. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back shortly for sure.